we're gonna be stranded in Paris. That is, if we don't find a place within the next week. I mean, it's just looking for an apartment online, paying rent, and then moving in. So it can't be that hard, right? Wrong. It's a nightmare. Let's talk about what I want in an apartment in Paris. I want to live in a cute neighborhood that feels like Paris, you know? Somewhere where there's cute cafes and somewhere with many great boulangeries so that I can get my croissants every day. It's important for it to be accessible as well, you know, somewhere near the metro and has lots of supermarkets nearby. For the inside of the apartment, we want something that has a lot of sunlight, so like big windows, because like I feel like I'm someone that's super affected by the weather and light, and when winter comes, we're gonna need those windows. Talking about windows, one of my non-negotiables was to have a Haussmannian window. That specifically, because if I don't have a Haussmannian window, am I really living in Paris? We also want a one-bedroom apartment, and we aim to find something under 1,005 euros, including charges and like electricity bills. So with all that said, let's go back to the start and talk about all the details. So apparently it is a nightmare to rent in Paris, but you know what? We didn't know that, or at least we did, but we totally underestimated it. The current situation is this: we booked an Airbnb in the suburbs, the banlieues, which is cheaper than in town within Paris. We are paying about 1.35 thousand euros a month, including electricity and all the bills. So this house is actually super cute. It has everything that I would ever need in a house, and it even has a really cute view. But it didn't fulfill some of the requirements that I had. For instance, it takes me about 40 minutes to get into town in Paris, and it doesn't really sound that bad, right? But I found myself being too lazy to even go out, which kind of defeats the purpose of being in such a beautiful city. And this town also doesn't really have much things, so there are no like cute streets or cute cafes nearby, which is fine for a suburban town, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. Like, you know, I wanted like the cute Persian streets. And also I would say it's not like the safest neighborhood. It's by no means the most dangerous around Paris, but I personally didn't feel like 100% safe here as an Asian woman. It's not somewhere that I would want to stay for an extended period of time. For like 1 month, it's alright, but more than that, no. Okay, and one of the biggest things is the stairs. We have to climb 6 flights of stairs every single day to get up to my apartment. Can you imagine? I don't even want to go down for groceries anymore. I don't really know why it didn't register in my brain when I booked this house. Like, I must have thought it was not that bad. Spoiler alert, it is bad. So in this 1 month, our mission was to find a house. But what we didn't expect was how long it would take and how hard it would be. So we ended up staying in this house for about 2 months. So let's go through conquering this mountain that is house hunting in Paris. Let's first talk about the ways that you can rent. Two main people you can rent from. Firstly, you can rent from an agent, or you can rent directly from a landlord. So with agents, there are some pros and cons. So for example, they help you with inventory when you enter the house to check that everything is in order. And they're also more trustable because like if you find a legit agency, you're not gonna get scammed. But the thing with agencies is that they want to satisfy the landlords, right? So they're really picky with who they pick for the apartment. They take some agency fees, and some of them might be like, for example, a month of rent, which is a lot, right? So in our experience, we actually failed every single agency that we applied to. And I think one of the biggest reasons is they really require you to have like a good pay and a good job. In France, there are like a few types of contracts. So one of it is CDI and the other one is CDD. CDD is like a temporary position where you can get terminated, but CDI means that you have a contract for an indefinite amount of time. A lot of these agents look for a CDI, which we don't have, so it was nearly impossible for us to get anything. So the second option is landlord. The good thing is you don't have to pay agency fees, you don't have to pay inventory fees, and you can actually communicate and negotiate directly with the landlord themselves. And so it was a lot easier for us to communicate with the landlord directly, and we got a lot of like viewings from this method, and some of them were actually willing to rent to us. Alright, so now let's talk about the main ways that you look for houses. So obviously number one, you have like friends or like word of mouth, and as a foreigner renting in Paris, I would say that if you have connections, life is gonna be a lot easier. Like if you know someone in the city or someone who knows people who are renting houses, it's gonna be a lot easier. But other than that, there's also Facebook groups that are dedicated to like apartment hunting in Paris. So a lot of people rent out their houses or like even sublet their houses for short periods of time. The catch is that there are a lot of scams on Facebook. There are a lot of like telltale signs for scams. So for example, if the price is too good to be true, if you're paying like, I don't know, 600 euros photos for a studio in the middle of Paris near Champs-Élysées, there is definitely a scam. Their pictures look too perfect, or like their pictures look a bit blurry. That is also a sign of a scam. They put their emails in the post itself and ask you to contact them, and their emails are usually like super weird. And then sometimes when you contact these people, they ask you to pay a deposit to view the flat, because a lot of people want to view this flat. So if you want to secure a slot to view this flat, you have to pay a deposit. Do not do that. You're never supposed to pay a deposit until you sign the contract, which is actually in the law. So other than that, there are also some sites that are dedicated to house hunting in France. One of the most famous ones, C'est Loger. On C'est Loger, you can find flats that are offered by agencies, but also from particuliers, which are like individual landlords. But there are a lot more agency listings on C'est Loger than landlord listings. And I would say that this website is the least scammy one because there are a lot of agencies. And then another one is PRP. On this side, there are a bit more scams, but there are more like individual landlords offering their apartment. On PRP, there are also both agencies and particuliers, but I would say there's more like individual landlords. The last one that I used was Le Bon Coin, which is actually a platform where you can sell things, but also people rent out their houses, and this one has the most scams. I don't know why. I guess like the barrier of entry for this one is lower. On Le Bon Coin, there's definitely a lot more like individual landlords, and this is also how we got a lot of our viewings. And then of course you have Airbnb, which is really expensive and I wouldn't recommend for a long-term stay. And then also there are a lot like sites and agencies that are catered to foreigners, for example Paris Attitude, but a lot of these tend to be a lot more expensive because they know that you need a house and you can't find one. So how do we contact these people on the site? A lot of the times they'll ask you to like message them on the site. There is a dedicated field that you can message them on, but most of the time they don't reply by this way. And for agencies, I would actually go over to the agency website and then send my inquiry on their website, or like try to call someone. But also sometimes on these sites with individual landlords, some of them put the numbers on the listing themselves, and this is the best way to get into contact with them. So you can either message them or you can call them, and you have to do this quick because like there are a lot of people that are eyeing the same apartment. We messaged all of them, but I would say maybe like 30% of them would reply, but the best way is really to call them. For me, I speak a little bit of French, so I could like, you know, communicate at least if they didn't speak in English. But if you didn't speak French, it could be a bit challenging unless you know someone who does. But calling is definitely the best method. A tip would be to put notifications for these apartments. So I had notifications turned on for all of these websites so that every time an apartment is posted, I would literally just send in my inquiry immediately, because you know it's kind of like a first come first serve kind of thing. So before all this, there's something that is very essential for everyone who wants to rent in Paris: the dossier. So the dossier is basically like a file that contains all the necessary documents that a landlord wants from you. Let's talk about what's in a dossier. So usually the most basic things for a dossier would be your proof of identity, your visa for a foreigner, and if you are a student, proof that you're enrolled in a school, and if you're working, you usually need your last 3 months of pay slips as well as your contract. You also need a proof of address, and lastly you need a garant. This is basically like a guarantee for the landlords that if you cannot pay the rent, someone is gonna pay it for you. For garant, I won't go into too much details, but you can use a physical garant. But this physical guarantee could be like your parents or something, but they have to live in France with all the necessary French documents. And the other way is to use online services. So one of them is called Visale. Visale is a government service that is free for residents. They will act as your garant for free. But there is also Garant Me, which is like another service, but you have to actually pay for this one. But I would say that getting the garant is the hardest part of finding an apartment, like, because for us, our parents do not live in France, so we don't have a physical French guarantor, and a lot of these landlords and agencies, they want physical French guarantors for some reason. Some of them don't accept Visale or Garant Me, so it was a bit tricky. That's just the way it is, I guess. French bureaucracy, yeah. So this file of all the documents is called a dossier, and this dossier can be in a few forms. There is a government website called Dossier Facile where you can submit all these documents and they will keep it safe for you, and you can send it to your landlord, and the whole process is a bit more secure. But also sometimes when you go for viewing, some of the agencies or the landlords might ask for your dossiers in physical copy, but also sometimes you can send it over to them in PDF, which is usually what we did. So with all that said, let's actually bring you to some viewings. So this is the very first apartment that we viewed. The size is just under 30 meters square and the price is 1,320. And this is in the 4th arrondissement. This is near Les Halles, which is in a very central location, and there are tons of trendy cafes and boulangeries nearby. So this was a great apartment, except that I didn't like how it felt. It felt a bit like a cave because of the lack of light. The kitchen area also felt really cramped. As you can see, there's literally no space to cook, and the fridge is really small. There's no oven, and for me, as someone who likes cooking, this kitchen was not going to do it. The bathroom though was really nice and newly renovated, so I really liked it. We were really conflicted on whether or not to get this place, but the kitchen was way too small for me and the lack of light, so we decided not to go with it. So the next apartment we viewed was in the 18th in the best area of Montmartre. It's even right on top of a famous bakery. This apartment though is literally on the 5th floor, French standard, so actually 6th floor. The size is 34 meters square and the price was 1,320 euros. And I really like the hand-painted wall, which adds a really vintage touch, but from the photos it looks so much better, but in real life everything actually looked like the mirrors are broken and the walls, you could see some mold on them. The sofa was, crusty, and the view is like a courtyard view, which is not bad. And it's also important to check the orientation. This was facing south, which is good because it has more sunlight. And I don't know why, but there was a bottle of chili in this electricity box, which was really bizarre. The kitchen was really also not in a great condition. As you can see, like the sink area had like a leak and stuff. If left alone, that would have been mold. And the bedroom looked, I don't know, maybe it's because of the mess from the previous tenant, but I really liked the balcony though. But the bedroom, well, the wardrobe was literally missing a door and it was just not in the great condition. I really like the bathroom though, like I like the red. But yeah, we decided not to go with this apartment simply because of the state it was in. So the next apartment we viewed was also in the 18th, but this is in a quieter part, not in Montmartre. We're now at our third viewing, so this is like in the 18th, and I think it's fairly near Montmartre, which is a beautiful place. Like, just look at the surroundings, it's so beautiful here. I was in love. Hopefully this will be the one, and hopefully we can rent it, because like Dossier and stuff. Now this apartment is on the 3rd floor, French standard, and it's 38 meters square, 1,477 euros, and it had beautiful walls and high ceilings, and it was just great. There was a little crevice that we could chill in, and the furniture is mostly wood, which I prefer. There's even a nice little fireplace right there, and look at Housemanian window. So it's a courtyard view. I wouldn't say it's super bright, but a lot of the apartments that we viewed were actually like that, and it's a southeast orientation, which is not bad. Now for the room as well, it was really big. There's even a study table, another fireplace. The only thing is that the bed was pretty small, but there's even a walk-in wardrobe, which is insane. So this house was actually really big. The bedroom windows faces south as well, which is amazing. More sunlight, and the bathroom is, clean. The kitchen was pretty good as well. There's an oven included and some storage spaces, and I like that it has a proper fridge with a proper freezer compartment, because a lot of French places don't have that. So yeah, there was plenty of space in the kitchen, which is important for me because we both like to cook. I did like this apartment because it was really quiet, it felt really big, but felt that it was not super worth it for the price, and so we decided not to take it. It's day 5 of our apartment searching journey and we are getting nowhere. We've been to 3 apartment viewings, that was it, and we couldn't find something that we really liked. So I think we'll just have to settle. Then we found yet another viewing, and this one was in the 18th as well. So this apartment looked pretty good. There's a decent sized fridge, and this is the living area, which is actually a little bit cluttered, but it had a nice view at least. So everything felt pretty okay, except that the space was really small. Like the living area was really small, whilst the bedroom was considerably larger. And for me, I prefer a bigger living space over a bigger bedroom. So we decided not to go with this, even though it looked pretty nice. So we just finished the viewing. This is probably like the 5th viewing or 6th viewing. We like to walk around the neighborhood when we go for a viewing as well. See if there's any like supermarkets nearby, if the neighborhood is safe. So yet another viewing. This one was in an amazing location. It was in the 9th. The size of this was 37 meters square and the price was 1,420 euros. And it's in a super nice area with trendy cafes and boulangeries. I was super attracted by this apartment just because of its location, because to me, the 9th arrondissement was my top choice, and it is super hard to find an apartment in the ninth. And because of the lack of the bedroom door, the whole space felt really big and open. So the whole place was really nice, and I really liked this, except the lack of sunlight, and the windows were really small and not Tasmanian. They had these grills on them, which I didn't like. So everything was actually really great except the windows. Okay, so update, it's like 1 week till we have to move out of this Airbnb and we still haven't found anything. So we might have to end up like on the streets. Okay, now this was one of our last apartment viewings, and this is in the third in a really nice area of Marai. The price was 1434 euros and the size is 34 meters square. The house feels really spacious, and I like that it's an open concept kitchen and the living room feels big. The bathroom is also really spacious and clean, but I think a part of the roof came off, so the view is not great, but it overlooks a really busy street in the Marai, and a very cozy bedroom with a big bed. So we actually tried to apply for this apartment, but unfortunately they didn't take us. But this was a really nice apartment in a really nice area. So after some time, the viewings were actually getting really tiring. It was already 1.5 months in and we were not getting any closer to looking for an apartment. We did find some apartments that were willing to rent to us, and most of these were from individual landlords. But there was always something about the house that we weren't completely happy about. For example, the lack of lights, or like the location, it's too far from the metro, the price not being justified, the lack of Tasmanian windows, a bad neighborhood. So we totally underestimated how mentally tiring this apartment hunting would be. We had to devote hours upon hours of our days to like look for apartments and go for viewings, and then we would fail all the time, and we had to be on alert 24/7 because every time a new notification for a new apartment comes up, we literally had to contact them immediately. So there was no rest for us. We were constantly looking for apartments, and after almost 2 months of this, it was getting really demotivating and tiring. And at this point I was low-key like, maybe we should just take a shit apartment for a shit price. Alas, the fateful day. We knew that our profile was not the strongest, so we tried to think from a landlord's perspective, what would make our profile more attractive. So this is another tip: offer some guarantee. So we started offering agencies and landlords guarantee, like for example to pay our rent in advance. And another sacrifice that we were willing to make was that we were willing to sign a lease without visiting the place. But I do have to say that I do not recommend this because it is so easy to fall victim to scams if you do this. We only did this because we made sure to do our proper research on the landlord to make sure that it wasn't a scam and it was an actual person and everything was proper. But we are still not sure until we move into the house itself, so I don't know. Let's hope that it's not a scam. So basically, we saw a really nice listing on Le Bon Coin. It almost looked like a scam because it was so nice. It was in a great area. The house looked modern and clean. And so I dialed the number immediately when she posted it. They picked up and I explained my situation to them. And I also told them that, we were willing to pay rent in advance, for example, 3 months of rent. And also that we were willing to sign the lease without visiting the house. And then she said she would get back to me. And let me tell you, that was literally the most nerve-wracking day of my life, like waiting for this woman's reply. I couldn't do anything else. It was literally like I was waiting for an exam result or something. So in the end, they decided to go with us. And we set a date to meet in the office to discuss everything. And eventually they sent us an electronic lease. We just got the bill to sign! And it's such a beautiful house too. And we're just gonna read through everything before we sign it. But oh my god, we finally found a house. To this day, I still don't understand why they picked us out of all the eligible files. But I guess like they didn't want to go through the hassle of having a visit. And also I was the first one that called. But I would have to say that I think we were really lucky with this. Because obviously our profile is not the strongest. So I think we just had a stroke of luck. And I'm just like, oh, thank God we found a house because I'm so sick of this. But we haven't yet moved in, so who knows? Anything might happen. And last tip, signing of the lease. You have to make sure to read the contract carefully, like with all the clauses, the termination clause, the amount of deposit you're supposed to be paying. You have to know how to protect yourself. But yeah, that sums up the whole apartment hunting ordeal in Paris. We were really lucky to find an apartment within 2 months, I think, because usually I think people take longer. But we never know. So we will only see the house, pay the deposit and pay the rent when we actually move in on the day itself, which is gonna be my next video, moving into my new apartment, so be sure to subscribe and check that out. I'll be posting more about my life in Paris, settling in, so if you want to see any of that, subscribe! So thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped you if you are apartment hunting in Paris. And do be sure to subscribe and follow my socials. I post content about lifestyle, modeling and traveling, so I'll see you next time. Ciao!